Welcome to another program of Older But Wiser. Today we have a very interesting man. Of course, we do get interesting guests all the time, but we have Peter Bruno with us. Peter, it's nice to see you here today.
Same here, Jimmy.
And
Lorraine.
We are going to enjoy your subject today. You've been with the MBTA
for almost 30 years.
30 years. So the people are going to be very interested in what you have to say about your whole career.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah. There's so much to know about the trolleys and
the old streetcars.
Streetcars. And you go way back to when they had tracks on the street.
Yes.
So let's have a little bit of the history about the tracks on the street.
Well, Everett had trolley cars up to about 1938. The last line was Lebanon, and the last one on Broadway's was Ferry Street, Malden Square, Ferry Street. And beginning about 1936, the rails were worn out, and they didn't want to supply any more rails or rebuild the rails because they kind of knew there was a war coming up, and it would be very expensive for them to do that. And the least expensive would be trackless trolleys, better known as trolley buses. And they could have gone with gasoline buses, but rationing was happening on gasoline as well for the war. And they weren't sure when the war was going to be. So the people took a vote on it. And what they did, when you got off the train at Everett Station, you took a trolley car to Broadway, not Broadway, CARHOUSE, which was Everett CARHOUSE, and
that's where Pope John is now.
That's where Pope John is, and you switched over to a new vehicle called the trackless trolley.
Oh, yeah.
And you tried it out from North Everett CARHOUSE to Linden Square on the 109 Broadway line, and if you liked it, you commented on it, and most people liked it very much. It was quieter, it was faster, and you had nice seats, leather seats that were nice and cushy, and instead of the wooden seat in the trolley car. But they had to have loops at every line, and in 1936 they tried it out, and by golly, it went over big. And on the overhead they had to add the extra wire and electric switches, and it was just copper wire, and that was the expense, and that was it. And the second line was, they went all the way to Everett Station on all lines. The second line was Woodlawn to Everett Station, and then other lines proceeded after that. The Chelsea crossover from Malden Square to Chelsea Square, and the pullbacks, and all those pullbacks and lines internetted down Glendale Square, which was called a 3/4 grand union of tracks and wire. And
but your main interest today is
on
restoring one of the cars, and it's up in Maine.
Yes.
And you're looking for money
for $58.21.
Yeah, and so on this program here
it's an
today,
appeal. Yes.
We're going to appeal to the people who love the history of our city.
This car's been running for 30 years up Maine, and we put more mileage on this car than Boston Elevated and the MTA did. And the car is in good shape. It's been restored about 25 years ago, and all we need is a restoration on a motor and a bearing, which does cost approximately $5,000. Everett got the newest Type 5s, which we call the Vision Front cars, Type 5s.
And these cars that you mentioned earlier, that if you wanted to go in the other direction,
you reverse ends.
You just stop driving from one end and drive it on the other end.
Yes, indeed you did. You just pull down your pole and you put up the back pole, and you were all set to go to the number 1 end or the number 2 end.
But eventually, if they do that, this will be up in Maine.
Yes,
it is.
The people will be able to ride 5821 once again, because just now it's on 2 motors instead of 4. And it goes slow, but it needs 4 motors to go right into from series to parallel.
Yeah, I see.
And the ride is very enjoyable, and it has the old gearing, you know, which gives it like a song, you know.
Well,
and
you really got interested in the history of the your job.
Oh, absolutely. It's been my not only my job on the MBTA, but it was also my hobby to begin with as a kiddo.
I bet you got trains at home.
Oh, absolutely.
See?
Trolley cars, that is.
What about the trolley?
you do,
What about the
Yes.
car tracks? Did they go over them with hot top, or did they pull them up, or what? The old
Well, recently they just pulled them up from North Broadway
really?
right down to Glendale Square. And I would think they will probably go onto Broadway Hill, down to Everett Square eventually. But
There's still tracks under there?
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, I
Yes.
didn't know that.
Everett Square is all pulled up, and Glendale Square up to my house, right near the Dairy Queen, is all pulled up to the Everett line. Malden still has the car tracks all the way down to Eastern Avenue, you know, where it turned down to go to Linden Square.
So if we went up to Maine, to Kennebunkport,
You will be able to ride this car when it's fixed, maybe next year, depending how much money comes in on the funds for the repairs. And there will be free tickets for anybody who donates, and free entrance to get into the museum for free.
will there be a sign up there to the effect that it came from Everett? And
Oh, yes, yes, that can be, the car is signed up with Everett signs.
Oh, is that
Yes,
right?
yes, it has all the signs there, including it has a Park Street sign that we put in too.
Oh, that's
Yes,
nice.
yes. It has Holy Cross, Faulkner, Lebanon, Malden Square via West Everett, Malden Square via Ferry Street, and Woodlawn.
That would be, I still remember them coming on Main Street where I lived.
That was the very last line. That
Yeah.
was discontinued about 1940, I think. That was the last car line, the Lebanon.
Yeah, 1940. I was 13 years old then.
Yeah.
See, so I remember that.
Before my time, but all I remember on that street, I was off of Main Street too, was the trackless trolleys.
Yeah.
And, but I do remember the streetcars at Everett Square, just coming from Chelsea Street because of the Everett shops. The Everett shops needed a car line for repairing the cars, and they ran on their own power or were towed by a good car with a bad car from Revere CARHOUSE or Eagle Street, East Boston CARHOUSE, and they ran right through Chelsea Square to Everett Square, and they ran to Everett shops. And they
Oh,
brought
yeah, there's a big car barn at Everett Station, where Everett Station used to
Well,
be.
not Everett Station, yeah, right in back of Everett Station, which is
Yeah.
the Everett shops. It's still
Yeah.
there now, they do all the buses.
That's right, they do.
Yes, and they also use that track for church purposes too, like Memorial Day, Easter, Sunday, and Christmas, and they reversed ends right in front of the old Park Theater, and they went back to Chelsea via the Everett Springs, and Revere, and East Boston. So there was extra service when they had that shop track,
Well, that's
which was the last track to be discontinued.
Yeah, that
It was
sounds.
3 sets of wires and trolley track.
Now, if the people were to make a donation, do we have a number?
We'll need donations of the appeal for 5821, and
That's the number of the
of the
trolley.
trolley car. And it's a piece of history. It's an antique, but it's a piece of equipment that still runs, and it's actually part of it. This car was delivered in 1924 by J.G. Brill, and it was at Everett for a while, and it's the only car. It started off at Everett, but it did go else places when they switched the trackless trolley.
And I want to thank you for being with us. I know that the people are all going to be interested in knowing what used to be
Interesting subject.
Yes.
in the past years of Everett.
Well, I just wanted to make an appeal, and I know it's probably fresh in the people's minds that the car tracks have just been lifted from North Broadway down to Glendale Square, and I know they haven't forgotten. So that's why I want to bear in mind that so that they will remember the car ran on those tracks that were lifted.
Very good. Nice having you
Thank
here,
you so much,
Peter.
and it's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank
and
you.
I've known you for a long
Oh,
time.
yeah, we're related, actually.
We're related.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely. And
And-
Lorraine, it's the same thing.
Thank
And
you.
we
know.
wish you luck
Nice
with
meeting you.
your project.
Thank you
very
so
much.
much for
Very
letting me on your
interesting.
program.
And we'll be right back.